Okay, welcome to episode 18 of Tech Over Tea. I am, as always, your host, Brody Robertson, and today we have a special guest on the show. I've actually been a big fan of his recent content lately. He's a very new creator on LBRY. He's making mainly content about the history of money, basically what currency is, various economic sort of videos like that, economic education videos, and his name is AureusDenarius. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me. And can I just say before we get started, you really gave my content a boost at the very start. So thank you very much, and I appreciate that.
Oh, no worries, man. Your content is really good. So it's nice to see like good original LBRY content, because there are good LBRY creators, but a lot of them are existing creators who came over from YouTube. It's nice to see good content that's like actually coming out first on LBRY.
No, thank you. I didn't really do much in the way of videos before, but I mean, I've kind of messed around with the LBRY platform before as a viewer, but nothing in terms of actually producing anything, and never really did much with YouTube. So I thought, might as well dive in.
So how long have you actually been using LBRY, not just as a creator, but actually just using the platform in general?
Ooh, maybe 4 or 5 months or so.
Okay, that seems to be when most people ended up joining. I joined around December, I believe it was.
I mean, I'm trying to think where I first heard about it from. I think it might have been through Scott Cunningham. Do you know his work?
Yes, I do, yeah. I've spoken to him a few times over DMs, and I do want to bring him on the show as well. I think he would make a really interesting guest.
Oh, for sure, yeah. He seems like a nice dude as well.
Yeah, so
I think I was with his videos. Sorry, go ahead.
I know, I wasn't going to say anything too important. Go on, what you're saying?
No, I was just going to say that I read a lot of published CROX articles, and I think I saw him come up, and that's where I maybe first heard about him, and then through him I heard about LBRY.
Oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. So for me, I was already like an existing creator. I think I started around July or so last year, and then I ended up having a few people from LBRY end up, sending some comments to me and be like, hey, come check out this other platform. I came over. At the time, it was a bit worse than it is now. Any complaints you have now about the platform, they were worse a couple of months before you joined. But it's a good platform. I like it. It's got some work that needs to be done on it, but it's definitely a good platform.
It is, and what I really like about it is that it doesn't lock you out of monetization straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Like YouTube now has what you need 1,000, 10,000 followers or something like that. 1,000?
It's 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 watch hours, and the 4,000 watch hours need to be in the last 12 months.
It's compared to what it used to be. It's definitely a bit of a barrier.
Yeah, it's a bit of a barrier, but I think a lot of people make a bit more of a fuss about it than they really should be, because when you have less than 1,000 subs, the amount of money you're actually going to make from your content is very, very minuscule. Obviously, unless you have something that is like a massive success, you're going to make maybe $1 a month if you're lucky.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. And if you have a tiny channel, maybe 2 or 3 subscribers, you could turn on monetization, maybe get your friends and family to click for you and try and wrangle the system a little bit like that. But even still, it's going to be for a tiny amount.
Well, yeah, I don't know how much you could really convince your friends to click on a video for you when, 1,000 views in America, I think, is $6.50 right now if you're on a high monetization channel.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't work so well.
But YouTube actually does, depending on the sort of content you do, they actually do raise up the monetization rate you're at. So if you were to do the content you did minus the crypto stuff on YouTube, you would actually be on a $10+ CPM. The crypto stuff would bring you down because YouTube isn't really a big fan of that, but economic stuff actually does pretty well.
I knew they hated crypto content. They've been on a mass stream of bans lately, but
especially around just before you joined as well. There was the crypto purge on YouTube around January, December, I believe.
They've had a few of them now. It's so many demonetizations.
Got to be a bit more specific when I talk about crypto purges now.
Well, I'm sure we'll have a good dozen more of them this year.
Oh yeah, no worries about that. Especially as more countries are starting to pay a bit more attention to it, rather than just let it be something that people are just they can go deal with themselves. Once people actually start paying a bit more attention to it, especially the government start paying a bit more attention to it, that's when you're going to start seeing some changes. That's for sure.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, sure. I think what was it? Was Trump saying, according to this guy Bolton, I suppose, that he was planning maybe a ban on Bitcoin?
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, I think that I forgot what his role was. Some big war dude, John Bolton.
Mm-hmm.
He was fired by the Trump admin, and he is leaking all this classified information, and he's trying to claim that Trump said he wanted to ban Bitcoin outright.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything about that, so I don't really have much of a comment on that. But that would be a bit of an interesting turn, that's for sure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Because once the US does it, then a lot of other countries will probably tend to fall in line. Now, obviously, there will be ones that ignore the US, especially their what's the word I'm thinking of? The countries they're antagonistic with. What's the word for that? Why am I blanking on this word?
Me too.
You know what I'm talking about, like countries like China and Russia.
Adversarial countries,
something
maybe?
like that. Anyway, countries like that, they're obviously not going to follow along suit with what the US does, unless obviously they saw some value in doing it themselves. But places like Australia, Canada, they would end up following pretty quickly along with what the US does.
I believe it's at least partially banned in China and Russia already.
Okay, yeah.
So if it was in the US, I could see them just making it completely illegal just to say F you.
Let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't have a ton in crypto right now, but let's hope that doesn't happen.
No, I can't really see it happening. I can see they probably want the taxes on it too much, so they'll probably try and put all these different regulations in it instead of banning it. At least that's my guess.
That seems like a more likely outcome for sure.
Because even when you do a crypto trade, let's say you went from Bitcoin to Ethereum and then back again, that's a taxable event.
Mm-hmm.
So they want you to pay taxes on that, even though you're already losing a chunk to fees and so on. And I know they have no way of actually tracking whether you do or not, but I'll leave that no comment.
Yeah, well, there's definitely ways they could track it a bit more than they do. It's not like the Bitcoin blockchain is private or anything. You can very easily track every single transaction that happens.
Exactly.
It's just tying it back to the person who actually made the transaction that could be a little bit more complicated.
As soon as you identify who they are, then it's much more easy to follow along.
And I'm sure that every government in the world will very, very happily take the tax income that they're missing out on right now.
Oh, without doubt. And I think it's only going to ramp up because, did you hear the announcement yesterday? I think it was. So PayPal and Venmo are now looking to start offering crypto services. You'll be able to buy a Bitcoin directly from them.
I heard something about that a few months back. I didn't know that was actually happening now. I think I heard
it was rumored for a while
or something like that.
I think CoinDesk announced it yesterday, so it seems to be happening.
Okay, well that's an interesting turn for sure, because it's definitely gotten a lot easier to buy bitcoins. That's for sure. Like I'm still fairly new to crypto, so I wasn't around when people were using some of the older exchanges, but I've been. I'm blanking on words. This is going to be an interesting podcast. We're both really tired right now.
It's just after 3 a.m.
Yeah, it's going on 6 p.m. here, and I already recorded 2 videos earlier today, so we'll see how this goes. Anyway, there's apps like the Cash App where you can just buy Bitcoin without even really needing to think about like what you're actually buying, and there's obviously how easy some of the exchanges are to use now. I don't know any American exchanges that are like this, but there's one in Australia called CoinSpot, which is a spot exchange that you really don't need to know anything about crypto. You can just deposit some money in it, buy some Bitcoin, and then having PayPal get involved with that as well will make it even easier for people.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Coinbase and Crypto.com are two of the big ones, and once you get past the KYC part, you can buy instantly. It's like that.
The KYC seems to be the thing that turns away quite a few people, but I understand why it's there. It makes sense why they have to do it, but I can see why some people would be turned off by it for sure.
Oh, definitely. I mean, if you want to go completely anonymous, completely private, try and find Monero or something like that, because that's what that's for. Bitcoin, I mean, it's pseudo-anonymous, like we were talking about earlier. So if you're hoping to use it to launder money, then you could find something a lot better. Bitcoin's probably not for you in that case.
Yeah, if you want to launder money, I'm sure, it would be easier to launder money in gold, to be honest. Like at least with
Probably,
gold,
yeah.
it doesn't have a physical link in the blockchain that you can just be like, oh yeah, the Bitcoin went from here to here to here to here. At least with gold, you can move gold around without actually noting down the trades properly.
Exactly. If you can buy it cash in hand somewhere that doesn't make a note of it. I think some coin shops actually have to report transactions of a certain value. But if you buy trace amounts, keep it in coins, hide it somewhere in your house, even bury it as people are known to do, then they'll never know you have it.
Yeah, it always does.
Again, not that
it always does amuse me a little bit when I see, you'll see various. There's a channel I watch who does a dark web series, and basically they'll go on like random sketchy websites, and they'll go across like drug websites and hitman websites, and they're always asking for payment in Bitcoin, as if that's somehow it's safer than just paying with a direct bank transfer or anything like that. It's not like you're not going to be caught if you did do a transfer like that.
The Silk Road guy, the one that's in jail, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but weren't you able to verify his transactions to a supposed hitman? I think the hitman in that case was a scammer trying to get some money out of him. But
that would be most of the hitmen, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. But I think you were able to verify the transaction he made to try and order a hit on somebody.
Well, when you have that much money, surely you've got to do something with it. Like, how much money do you really need? Just start calling hits on people. You got too much money anyway. Whatever. That's not... Don't do that. If anyone here is a millionaire, don't actually call a hit on someone. That was a joke.
Particularly not us.
Yeah, I'm quite good with not having a hit on me. That would be nice.
Yeah, I made it this far.
So, what actually got you into making content? Not just making content specifically about money, just what got you into making content just in general?
Well, it's never really about the money, even though my videos are about money, ironically. It was more, I wanted to try and make something that could educate people but be digestible. That's why I tend to do shorter videos. I don't do maybe 2-hour-long ones. As much as I love watching them, I think it's easier to get a point across in maybe 10, 15 minutes and have it stick better. And I watch a lot of Mike Maloney's videos. He's very good. He's got a series called The Hidden Secrets of Money. It's a lot more like what I do, but in a much bigger scale and much more market-focused approach. So I kind of wanted to do something more accessible. And I thought, where better to start than just the question, what is money? So that was my first episode. And then after that, I kind of just expanded from there.
Yeah, you have... From what I've seen, you have kind of two different types of content on your channel right now. You have the history of money, and then you've also got your other content, which is more of the, I guess, the general educational stuff for things that are important for the real world right now. So, like, how do you buy crypto? How do you save extra money? Things like that. That's at least how I look at your channel.
No, I think that's a good way to look at it. I've got a more historical, education-focused one, and then a more practical solution type. That's a good thing, actually, yeah. Like the more practical solution was I just in my own files I make just my general discussions. It's not really named
Yeah.
as any proper source. But if I think of a topic, I'll make a video on it and just kind of freeball it a bit more. But the story of money ones take a lot more planning, a bit of research and all. And you would be surprised how long it takes for me to actually get all those images together and make sure I can actually use them with permission.
Oh, yeah, that would be another
So
big problem, wouldn't it? I didn't even think of that.
I try to find as much open source. No, sorry, not open source. What am I talking about?
Creative Commons?
That's the one. Yeah, try to find as much of those as possible. Maybe go to places like Shutterstock, make sure I can download them and all that. But sometimes I get completely stuck and just think, okay, I need a picture of a coin. Just go on to Google and it'll do. So hopefully that's okay. If anyone wants me to take it down and change it, I'm happy enough to do that.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I think is going to hit a lot of people in a couple of years if LBRY does stick around. Because there's a lot of people who are doing what was happening in the early days of YouTube, where they'll just have random music in the background, or they'll use images they don't really have the rights to. And right now, it's the only reason no one's really coming after people is because LBRY is still such a small platform. But if it does keep growing, it will become a bit of a problem.
That's actually a question I'd like to ask you about. So there's the LBRY protocol, and that encompasses their blockchain. But then they've got the LBRY website and their platform. So what I've heard is, and see if you can verify this for me, if you take something off of the website or the app, you can still access it from the blockchain. Is that right? Am I understanding that correct?
Yeah, so at least the way I understand it, once again, I don't work for the team or anything like that. I just have a direct line to the team. I've talked to them for quite a while about this stuff. But so the way that I understand it is you have your application layer, which also has things like your search algorithm and various things like that actually, I guess, crawls across the blockchain to to work out what content is on there, and then, because, geez, this is going to be a fun one. It crawls across the blockchain, and on what's actually being stored on the blockchain is basically a link to where the content is actually being, I guess, located, similar to what you'd have with like a BitTorrent address. So you're not actually storing the video on the blockchain. That would be a horrendous use of the blockchain. What instead you're doing is the...
Very big.
Yeah, it'd be a little bit... people have tried it before. It's not a good idea. You get a really slow blockchain by doing that. So...
CryptoKitties.
Sorry, what was that?
CryptoKitties. It's a like sort of almost like a trading card game on Ethereum, and trading these little pictures of cats, and it completely congested the network, and it made the fees shoot up. I think it hit like $50-$60 at one point for a single transaction.
Oh, geez. Okay, yeah, that's what can happen. It gets even worse if you do video, obviously. What was your original question again? I don't remember.
What's the difference between the protocol and the platform?
Right. Okay, so the protocol is basically includes the blockchain, and I'm not... and the protocol is basically the delivery method of how the content is actually being sent around. So similar to how something like... Basically think of it like how BitTorrent works. It's pretty much the same concept. And then the application is the, I guess, as I said, the application layer. So you have your website, you have the app, the desktop app, and that's how you actually access the content. But if it's being blocked in the application layer, then if you were to have a direct address to the content, you still would be able to access it. I think that made sense as an explanation. Probably not.
It does. So it means that LBRY, the company, can kind of remove themselves from responsibility a bit. They can say, if there's copyright material, okay, we've taken it off our platform, but even if it's still accessible by a direct link, it's not really being hosted by LBRY. So they're able to kind of say, oh, well, that's not us anymore. That's peer-to-peer.
Yeah, so LBRY is trying to take more of a platform approach rather than being a publisher. So they will still take stuff down that is in violation of the US law. So there actually has been a couple of cases where content has had to be taken down. Specifically, there was a porn studio a few months back who got really annoyed that there was a lot of channels just re-uploading their content, and filed like 10 or 20 DMC takedown notices.
Wow. I can see how that can be a problem, because it could be theoretically quite easy to just download a bunch of people's videos from YouTube, big names, stick them up, and also, like I said, porn as well. It's very, very easy to cross the copyright issue there.
Well, just a personal issue with myself. Someone had taken one of my early videos I did. I think it was talking about just LBRY in general, and they just re-uploaded it on their channel and was like, oh yeah, I made this. Like, no you didn't.
Oh, wow. What's scumbag?
At least back then, I don't think view tips were enabled, so they didn't actually make anything off of it. But it was still a bit annoying.
Oh, I totally get that. I mean, I've probably got that coming myself at some point in the future.
Especially with your I don't know if it will happen too much with your historical content, but definitely for the like explaining how to get into crypto and things like that. I imagine someone's probably gonna take the content and be like, "This is mine now."
It reminds me of that meme. Someone walks up to another guy, says, "I made this," and he walks away. The other guy says, "I made this." Always made me laugh.
So, since we're on the topic of LBRY, what do you actually think about the platform in its current state? I know it's a kind of a general question, but are you actually liking the state that's currently in? I don't know. There's probably something I can format as a proper question there.
No. I get the question. So I've got a fair few things I can compare it to. I've got obviously YouTube, BitChute, and Daily and all those. You can tell by the layout of some of them, like BitChute, that it's going to struggle to hit the same sort of mainstream appeal as YouTube. But I think even just from an aesthetic standpoint, LBRY looks a lot more user-friendly. So I think it's got a lot going for it when you first get to the homepage. That's a great start. But obviously, it still needs a lot of work in terms of features like notifications. But I know they're working on that, and that's going to be one of their next things. I think I've seen some previews on their Twitter account.
Yes, they are very much in the works for notifications. So that should be, I'm not going to say next update, but maybe the one after that. So
how often do they do updates? Would it be a monthly sort of thing?
They don't really have a time frame for it. LBRY TV tends to get the updates first, just because they can just relaunch the build of the application. So that one tends to get the new features a bit quicker than the desktop application does. I'm not sure which one you use, LBRY TV or the LBRY desktop app.
A bit of both, but mainly the LBRY.TV.
Okay. Yeah, so that ended up getting the MoonPay feature first, and then I think maybe it was 2 or so weeks later it came over to the desktop app. I think if desktop app is usually maybe once a month, maybe once every month and a half or so. I don't think they have a proper release schedule. It's more about when it's ready, it'll be released.
That makes sense. I mean, it's a good way to beta test it. Just test it on the website first, let it run for a week or two, and then you can send an update out for the desktop application.
Well, the nice thing
makes more sense.
Yeah, it definitely does make more sense. That's for sure. The nice thing about doing the different streams of the application, so you have the Android app, you have the desktop app, and LBRY TV, is it's much easier to actually beta test features that maybe aren't good features, but they kind of think, well, maybe this might work. So things like, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but on the Android application, they've been testing out paid comments. So basically they have a little fee that you have to pay to actually post a comment.
I'm going to say something completely heretical. I use an iPhone.
Oh, okay, well, you're never getting an iPhone app. I don't know. It'll come eventually.
I mean, to be fair, LBRY.TV works fine in the browser on the iPhone. But no, I'm sorry, no. I've not seen that feature, no.
Okay. On the Android application, they're testing out paid comments. I think initially it was being pegged to like 25 cents. And people were like, no, this is bad. Don't do that.
It's funny because there's you know Bitcoin SV?
Yes, I know of it. I don't know too much about it.
There's an app built on that called Twitch, and their whole thing is you pay to post. It's basically Twitter, but paid. So every post is like 5 cents. Every like is maybe 1 cent, 2 cents. And it kind of functions based on that way. And it was growing very fast for a while, but I think it's kind of stalled a bit because it's hard to kind of onboard people when the first thing they see is paywall. So if you're doing paid comments, I can see why that'd be off-putting, particularly if it's 25 cents a comment.
I think they've lowered it down to like 5 cents or something now, but still, I'd be entirely fine with it if they just let it be up to creator controls. If I want to make people pay for comments, let me make people pay for comments. If I want to make it free, let me make it free.
I completely agree. Leave it up to the creator.
I think the reason why they did it is because I'm sure you've seen this, especially as your channel's been growing a bit. There is lots of spam on LBRY.
100%. I've got random posters of scripture, which I'm okay with because I'm Christian.
I have seen that, yeah.
Weird. And you'll get a lot of people just saying, good job, and a thumbs up, and then you'll find them having posted the exact same comment on a bunch of other new videos. So you can tell they haven't actually watched it. They're just posting to maybe get a follow back and get some rewards out of that.
Yeah, there's an interesting way I've seen the follow back being done recently. They post like a friendly comment, and then they'll embed their invite link within that comment. So if you click on the comment, it takes you to their invite.
Oh, sneaky.
I guess
I haven't seen that yet, but
a bit more effort.
I'm sure it's coming.
Sorry?
Sorry, I was just saying I haven't seen that yet, but I'm sure it's coming.
Yeah, it'll definitely come, because you're at nearly 1,000 subscribers now, I think?
I'm at 930.
930, okay.
So
getting close.
Growing fast.
I'm trying to get you onto the top 200 creators. It's slowly happening, but also top 200 is growing very quickly.
It is, and there's a lot of good people on there. A lot of people I would never have found on YouTube, but so the website LBRYnomics?
Yes, yeah. Big fan of LBRYnomics.
I've scrolled through there quite a few times, and I see names, just a random channel. I'll see a name. I'm like, I wonder what they do. Look into it. Wow, it's great. So many of them. It's something you just never find on YouTube by accident.
I just realized I have my my video view. I can actually just show LBRYnomics on the screen right now.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so the top 10, like even the top 10, we have like Bombard's Body Language. I've never heard of this channel before, but apparently they were already really popular outside of LBRY, but I'd never heard of them before.
No, me neither. That's number 3 on the list, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, okay, technically number 1, because the LBRY channel and LBRY cast don't count. LBRY doesn't count because they auto-subscribe people.
Of course, yeah.
And LBRY cast is auto-pinned to the homepage, so I'm not going to count that one either. So technically Bombard is number 1 right now.
And then even Crypto Hustler 101, he was on your show a week or 2 ago, was it?
Yes.
I hadn't heard of him until I came to LBRY. He does some good stuff.
I think he made some content on YouTube.
I'm sure he did, yeah. But it's just so much harder to find because it's a much more saturated space.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Especially in the crypto space for the sort of content he does. Because there's so many channels that are like, I'm going to do a crypto update. Like, you're going to do something different to definitely stand out from that, that's for sure.
I think that's kind of the approach I wanted to take when I was going in. There's a lot of videos on crypto, and it is something I like to talk about and want to talk about, but I don't want it to be my sole focus, just because it's probably been done, and it's probably been done better than what I could do. So,
well, you could always... this has probably already been done as well, done to death, but you could probably also go into like the history of crypto and like how that ended up starting up. But just doing the regular crypto updates is not really... I get why people do it. It's easy content, but there's not really much to be said there.
Yeah, it's such a volatile market. You could say this today, oh, the market's up. Tomorrow you say, oh, the market's down. Next day after that, oh, the market's up again.
Oh, market's stable now.
No, amplifying it, but you get the point, I think.
But the other good thing, like, obviously there's the channels that no one's heard of, like, being on LBRY, but it's nice to see there's so many channels that actually are popular on YouTube that are over here now. So... I don't know if you've ever watched his content, but EEV blog. He's basically a electrical engineer who is from Sydney, and basically just makes random videos going over pretty much a lot of his stuff is going over scam electronics on places like Indiegogo.
I haven't seen that, but that sounds like something I'd be interested in. I'll definitely take a look.
Like he did one
E- e-
recently. He did one recently about like a 5G bioshield built into a USB or something like that.
Whoa, I think I've seen that before. That was a big story a couple weeks back, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think even the UK government or something was recommending, or some UK government branch recommended people buy it.
Of course.
But besides that, we have like for politics, we have Timcast and uh, Red Pill Philosophy and other various channels like that, and even just like educational stuff like Minute Physics. I think Minute Physics was the reason why I actually decided to make my library account. I was like, why is Minute Physics on this platform I've never heard of before?
I mean, I find it's very easy to find people on library once you go to library, but on places like BitChute, the discovery is very hard to navigate around. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just not very good at it. But
Well, no, the problem with BitChute is its search engine is very, very basic. It's pretty much just like it's a keyword search, nothing more than that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think even if you spell, like if you were to search for my account, if you spell my name wrong, you won't find it.
I'm going to test that right now. No, never mind.
Yeah, I might be completely... Actually, you know what? We're going to test it. Actually, I'm going to open up BitChute first, just in case there's anything I shouldn't show on the screen. Just in case. Okay, no, I'm logged in, so you don't actually see anything. Cool. Let's see. So...
Cool.
I'm going to spell... Just get rid of the last part of my name. Yep, you don't find it. If you just don't spell it exactly correctly, you don't find it.
I bet if you put it into library, it'd be one of the first things to come up.
Yeah, it was actually a problem for a little bit where it didn't come up. Actually, I just realized I wasn't even showing it on the screen. Whatever. I'll show it on the screen now. Yeah, it's not actually being, it's not coming up if you search for my name. But yeah, on library for a while, I think even if you search for my channel handle, it wouldn't come up. And that was...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a problem they had early on with the way they were doing their search algorithm, but they dealt with it pretty quickly.
Oh, that's good. At least they're very quick to respond.
Yeah, even at the time, I think at the time I was maybe only had like 1,000 subscribers, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that's cool," because the platform's so small, there's actually people there who will listen to people who have like actual complaints about the platform. Unlike YouTube, where if you're a 1,000 subscriber channel, well, good luck getting a response.
Yeah, you're a small fry on YouTube if you're 1,000 subscribers, but on library you're probably top 400 or 500, maybe.
That's probably right. I know that top 200 right now is 2,000, and I'm actually really excited because top 50 is about to go over 10,000, which is absolutely insane.
Follower goals.
It's not like follower goals really mean too much, because I have noticed views are going up recently across like all of the channels. So it seems like more people are using library on a more frequent basis, but even though I have 10,000 subscribers, I still tend to get maybe 300 or so views a video. Whereas on YouTube, if I was getting like 300 views on a video and I had 10k subs, there's no point uploading a video that day.
Yeah, definitely. What would you call it? I suppose exchange rate between followers and views is better.
Yeah, I think the reason why people mainly stick on YouTube, one is obviously because they're more comfortable with it and it's kind of habit, but also because all of their creators who they watch are on YouTube, so they can just say, I want to watch Aureus' video today, I want to watch this other video and this other video, so they don't have to leave the platform, they can just keep watching stuff in the one place.
Well, not just that as well, it's convenience, because so many games consoles and smart TVs have a YouTube app built in. So you don't turn it on a computer. Just sit on your couch, turn on TV. There you go. There's YouTube. Yeah, we haven't got that for library just yet.
Yeah, you can still use library TV on like a PlayStation or something like that, but it's not as good as having a native application.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see, what do I have on this list? So, what actually got you into like wanting to talk about money on your channel?
Well, see, I've been into cryptocurrencies and gold and silver for maybe 3-4 years now. Like just before the massive bull run in 2017, that's when I got into crypto. So made a bit of a profit out of that, and then the interest kind of hung around. And the more I kind of dived into it, because it was very surface level back then, I just kind of bought it based on the hype rather than actually understanding it. And the more I started to understand it, the more I started to look into money itself. And then I listened to a lot of Peter Schiff, who is also on LBRY now, which is funny considering he's very anti-blockchain. And then I listened to a lot of Mike Maloney and various other crypto YouTubers. And it really kind of made me think, okay, so money is this big thing. We all use it. We all talk about it. We don't really understand it. And then I wanted to understand it. So I started researching a bit, and then I kind of had a bit of a knowledge base from that. So whenever it came to the point of thinking, you know what, I'm going to start a channel. I'm going to start making some videos. Then it kind of seemed like an obvious topic for me because it's something that wasn't completely overdone yet. And it's something I knew enough about to be able to talk about without having to like dive crazy into learning a brand new topic.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was probably a pretty good place to start.
So, by judging by what you just said there, you're thinking of maybe expanding out into other things as time goes on?
I would say expand it a little bit, but I still want to have the core focus of the channel as something to do with money and currency.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I move more, let's say I get maybe 10, 15 episodes into the story of money, and I've kind of exhausted some of the historical aspects that are the most key,
Mm-hmm.
then I could maybe move into cryptocurrency because that brings us to more modern times. But at the same time, I wouldn't really want to give up the whole historical aspect because I think that's kind of what sets me apart, keeps it a bit more unique.
Yep. Well, yeah, I definitely hope you do keep that up because I am enjoying the series, that's for sure.
Well, more to come. I just released my last yesterday.
I know. I watched all 5 episodes just before we started recording the podcast.
Cool.
I'd seen the 3rd episode. That was the one that LBRY had promoted on their Twitter account, but I hadn't actually gone and watched the other ones yet.
Yeah, it's what kind of made it explode a bit, and then I think that's when you made the support for me, mm-hmm. and that really gave a boost. Which, again, I really appreciate that. Thank you. I don't know if I'd be anywhere close to what I'm at now without that.
Well, I actually do have a subscriber who likes to go around boosting random channels. I don't know why he bought this much, but he's got a couple 100,000 LBC, and he just puts supports on people's channels, so I might give him a message, see if he wants to support your content.
Oh, that'd be amazing. Thank you.
Because I think the last guy he had it on was one of my patrons by the name of Donald Fury, who makes a lot of Linux-y content, a lot of kind of like gaming content as well, and he was only at maybe, I think, 2 subscribers when I last checked, and now I think he might be at like 100 or 200.
That's pretty good percentage growth.
Yeah, and obviously because supports don't actually cost you anything. If you, I don't know, I think that's one of the nice things about LBRY. I do have my complaints about the way the support system does work, but it is nice that you can actually, talk to someone who's maybe a bigger creator or maybe has a bit more LBC than you, and if they like your content, they can say, okay, well, I like what you're doing, I'm going to boost you up into trending, which just isn't really possible on something like YouTube.
Yeah, without doing maybe a video shout-out or something, or guest appearances. You can, even if you want to do a support, you can do it completely anonymously and say, without having to actually endorse anybody, you can just say, okay, give them maybe 10,000, 50,000, whatever, for maybe a day, see how they do, and then they're none the wiser as to who helped them out. So it's got various good aspects to it, but I do have a few issues with it at the same time because of how it can end up dominating various search results, even if there's content that's a bit more relevant that should be up a bit higher.
Yeah, early on there was a lot of problem with people doing tag abuse and then boosting stuff up into trending. So they would say, like, I don't know, some random crypto video and then tag it as cars and tech and various other things that it's not about, and then just boost themselves up in trending and get a bunch of views they shouldn't be getting.
Yeah, I could definitely see how that would be a problem. I suppose even those porn videos you mentioned before that were copyrights hit, and you could stick Bitcoin in that and have it be up top.
There was a lot of problems early on with porn not being tagged properly, and you would basically just get it appearing on the homepage, so people would not tag it properly. I think at the time you only needed to put like 40 or 50,000 LBC on it, and that would get it onto the homepage.
Wow.
They did deal with it really quickly though, because it's a pretty bad look to have that on your front page.
Oh, for sure. If a young kid was using it and a parent walked past and saw the porn just sitting on the front page, they'd be like, never use that again.
Yeah, that's why there was a lot of discussions early on about actually separating the porn out into like a separate application. I think those discussions have kind of died down now that the stuff's actually getting tagged properly, but that was kind of why that discussion had even come up, really.
I think another good thing is that the more creators come to LBRY, the more the porn would probably get kind of flooded out. It'd be diluted down to the point where it'd be quite tricky to find unless you actively search for it.
Well, yeah, when I first joined, I think there was maybe 5 or 6 porn channels on the top 200 creators, but now There's not a single one there. They've all been kind of flushed out by the people who actually make content.
And that's a good thing, I think. Definitely. No, I think. Definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing that we have a lot of good content coming to the platform. That's for sure.
I'm very excited for where it's going to go because, I mean, even just looking through the top 200, there's a lot of names from YouTube that I would actually watch on a day-to-day basis. So seeing that they're all moving to LBRY as well, it's encouraging. And it makes me kind of want to focus more on that as well.
Yeah, I do still see a lot of value in LBRY, in YouTube. I know that a lot of people on LBRY and a lot of these alt platforms don't really want to say that YouTube has really any value, but it is still the biggest video platform in the world. It's how you're going to get people over to LBRY.
Exactly. It's great to have a big platform on LBRY, but those are people that are already on LBRY. If you want to expand the platform, you need to be able to have a bit of a following outside to bring to it.
Yeah.
So it definitely has a lot of value in that regard.
Yeah, on my YouTube channel, I have about 7.1 thousand subscribers, which I don't know where those came from. I was only at like 6.5 the middle of last month, so it's been growing pretty quickly lately. And
very good.
Yeah, I don't know what I've done. I don't know, something happened, now it's boosting up pretty quickly. But I think, well, a lot of my early start on LBRY was because I had the YouTube channel, because the reason why I got a start on YouTube was around, I think, the start of this year, so around January or so. One of the bigger Linux creators, I think he had maybe 70,000 subscribers at the time, he gave my channel a shout out, and that boosted me all the way up to 2,000. And along with that, he'd also shouted out LBRY in that video as well. And because he shouted out me and he shouted out LBRY, my channel on LBRY jumped all the way up to like 2,000 or 3,000 subscribers, which is absolutely crazy. So that's the sort of power that a big channel can have when they actually do shout something like this out.
Exactly. And LBRY, for all the good it's done, it doesn't have, like, if a channel on LBRY has 10,000 followers, that is huge. But if somebody on, like I said before, YouTube has 10,000, it's still good, but it's not massive. So someone with 70,000 being able to shout out, that can leave a huge impact, as you saw. So I think the more huge creators over on YouTube, in the hundreds of thousands, more of them that kind of give LBRY a bit of attention, the faster and bigger the platform's going to grow.
Well, yeah, I was saying about ETH Blog before. I can't remember how many subscribers he has on YouTube. I think it's in the realm of like 600,000 or 700,000. Give me one second.
That's pretty damn good.
730,000.
Wow.
He has been going for like 10 years though, so I'm not too surprised. But there are other creators who have... Sorry?
I'm just saying he's definitely dedicated.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how long... He's got a series called, like... I think he just calls his main series EV Blog, and he's got 1,300 episodes of it, so That's been going for a while.
Wow. Someone I follow, Stefan Molyneux, he's been going on YouTube since it's also been a good at least 10 years, and he's moved over to the library as well. Not moved over. I keep saying moved over. He's on library too.
I only heard about Stefan Molyneux in like the last 2 or 3 years. I didn't know he'd been around for that long.
Quite a while. I think I first maybe started listening to him 2015. So but obviously there's a lot of stigma around him at the same time. So it can kind of be off-putting to people who don't really know much about him.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see. What do we have on the list? So, in one of your videos, you had an example of the purchasing power of currency, and the example you used was purchasing a house.
Yes.
So you talked about how the price of a house had, I guess, effectively come down because in the past it was 300 and something ounces of gold or whatever it was, and then it's come down to like 200 or so. So
I think that's episode 2.
Something like that,
maybe?
Yeah. So that, I would presume, would have to do with the improvements in things like manufacturing ability and the ability to actually create the material that would go into these properties.
I mean, it's certainly possible. I wouldn't say I would know the definite ins and outs of it, but it's in terms of fiat currency, it's much more costly to buy a house. But in terms of gold, it's much cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So what I would kind of maybe take from that myself is that it means that wages haven't increased in the West the way they would have increased in the past. I could be completely wrong, but that's just kind of what I took from it whenever I was looking into it.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely, as the manufacturing process changes, like materials become cheaper, you can use different substitutes that don't need to be, like the various different wood types you can get. It don't need to be like sturdy oak anymore. There's various mixtures they can do to put down different floorboards and so on. So definitely that would be a part of it. I mean, even if you look at bricks these days, like previous bricks, if you look at all the old European houses, they would have a lot of very heavy stones that have been carved. Whereas now, things like red bricks and those gray, kind of grainy bricks, they would be used a lot as well, and they're much, much cheaper and much easier to produce. So definitely an aspect to it.
That, at least to me, seemed like the most, I guess, the simplest explanation for why that would be happening. But I guess that also makes sense that you'd also have the wages not increasing also being part of it.
And I think as more people tend to lose jobs to robotics, AI, and more people end up in welfare, that kind of has a big knock-on effect as well.
Mm-hmm. That actually takes
So
me into
all supply and demand.
Yeah, that's pretty much you can take it all down to. It's all just supply and demand in the end. But
yeah, exactly.
That did lead me into another thing I did want to talk about. During all of this COVID stuff that was happening, there's a lot of countries that had basically turned their welfare programs up to 11.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah, so with Australia, it would be, I guess you could effectively call it what amounts to being a UBI. It's still coming to an end, supposedly, in September, but there were people who were actually getting paid more for not working.
Yeah, it's same in some parts of the US with the big stimulus checks that we were doing.
Mm-hmm. I did hear about some interesting stuff that was happening with stimulus checks early on. I don't know if you heard about this story, but I think when the first stimulus check came out, one of your big retailers, the same day the stimulus check came out, also released a TV for the exact same cost as the stimulus check.
Wow, I didn't hear about that, no.
It just amused me that happened. Yeah, it's obviously a smart move. A lot of people, when they get an extra bit of money like that, or an extra bit of income like that, they're not really sure what to do with it.
Exactly. Well, I mean, the first instinct for most people isn't save. Not anymore, at least. The first thing is, ooh, I've got the spare money that I didn't have before. What can I spend it on?
There definitely seems to be a serious lack in the education about, I guess, what would be the way to say it? What, not just what your money is worth, but how to actually spend your money.
Exactly. It's
Oh,
been
my
very
housemate's
directed
having fun
toward
outside.
a nice sunny day over there.
No, it's 6:30 right now. They just like yelling.
Fair enough. But no, I mean, we've all been kind of directed towards a lot of consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
And consumerism in itself is not always a bad thing. I mean, there's nothing wrong with buying some new books, a couple of games, TV or something. But I think a lot of people take it to the extreme, where they'll have mountains and mountains of things that they don't want or need. And I mean, I'm completely guilty of it. Like, over the years, I think I built about maybe a collection of like 200-300 video games. And I've been kind of in the process of selling them off because half of them have not even played before. So
Yeah, I know the feeling. When I first bought my PS4, I bought a bunch of games along with it, and just I never played any of them. I don't know why I bought them.
You see it, you see a nice cover, you think, "Ooh, that looks fun." You grab it, buy it, never put it in. It's the exact same for me. I've got a massive PS2 collection, and even going back to PS1 days, I've got so much stuff that I've never used and probably never will use. So I've just been slowly selling them off and trying to train myself not to buy things I don't need as much.
I wish I did keep some of that stuff from when I was a kid, because I know it would still be working now. I just got rid of it as the new console came out, but looking back, like, it's not anything extra I would have bought. It's just I kind of wish I didn't get rid of it.
Just kind of gives you a nice memory, or it was a fun game from your childhood, bit of nostalgia. I'm the same, but there was a game called Tomba over here. I think it was Tombi in some other countries, and I don't ever actually rented it. But then maybe 10 years later, I actually bought it off of eBay for like, I think it was about $60-$70, and now it's worth about $250.
I guess you can say it was an investment then.
I suppose so, but at the same time, it's one of those ones you don't want to sell because you have some kind of attachment to it. Mm-hmm. I know it's really a good reason not to sell it, but I mean, I like it, so you know. It kind of goes back to my whole point. Sometimes it's kind of hard to train yourself off of some of the more consumerist practices.
For sure, yeah. Well, it's not necessarily a bad thing, as you were saying. Like, sometimes you do, obviously you can put all of your money into investments and only buy food and pay for your bills, but that's a boring life.
Bit boring, yeah, definitely. I mean, it's nice to be able to go out and enjoy a movie every now and then. Maybe buy something for your wife or whatever, but I mean, you need to be able to treat yourself sometimes.
For sure, yeah.
Keeps things interesting.
Yeah, for me,
but at the same time... sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, for me, the main thing that I treat myself with is just buying books. I like reading before I go to bed. It's a good way to get myself, like, not looking at a screen just before I go to sleep. Tends to help, actually get to sleep a bit easier.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they've done so many studies on the effects of like blue lights and how it messes with your sleep, and it's really bad for you. So that's definitely a good way to get yourself off of that. And I mean, when you're reading a book, you're not flicking through Twitter.
Yeah, for sure.
I think guess which one's much better for your mental state. Definitely the book.
Are you about to say something before I cut you off?
I forgot what it was. It's probably not important. Don't worry.
That's all good. Probably something about consumerism.
Probably, yeah. Which I have to keep repeating this. It's not always a bad thing to be able to consume. It's what keeps the economy taking over, isn't it? Because so many things that were deemed essential before are no longer essential. So more creative outputs like games, books, movies, they become a bigger part of the economy. So it's good to still keep that going strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even just a couple of years back, I'm almost at the point now where I could just say I don't want to work my day job if I wanted to. And that's just not something that would be possible, really, even just 5-10 years ago.
Oh, definitely, yeah. The things have changed so much in the online space that it really has just it's shooken the whole system to its core, and I don't think the system's really kind of caught up to it yet.
Yeah,
And I think the more jobs are kind of phased out, like you go to somewhere like McDonald's, you'll see big screens instead of rows of cashiers.
Mm-hmm.
And the more jobs like that are phased out, I think the more people are going to be forced to be creative. So getting into that good and early, like, I mean, I would still consider us now early into that whole scene, even though there's been massive YouTube creators, but I think it's got so much more room to grow. So I think the more we do now, the more that'll help in the future.
Well, even if you really want to think about it, obviously people have made money on the internet since the start of the internet, really. But for YouTube, it's only had monetization for when did it? Maybe 2008, 2007. I know it didn't have it in its first year. Right. A couple of years after it started. So at absolute best, maybe just doing like online video in the current form that it's in has been monetized maybe for the past 12 years or so. So it's still really, really early on in, I guess its life cycle.
I would say so. And the more alternative funding platforms that come out, like you got your Patreons, you got obviously the library with LBC, and I mean, I think the ad model is starting to kind of wind down a little bit because of how saturated it became, to the point where it's very hard to earn money from that. I mean, I used to be into the Flash game scene back in 2004, 2005, going back a while now, and you used to be able to make a pretty good living off of Flash games or Flash animations, and the ads just dried up to the point where previously getting 20,000, 30,000 plays or views would be able to get you sponsorships. It would be able to get you all sorts of like high return yields from your ads. But now it's, if you get 20,000 views, you're getting nothing. So the systems, as far as ads go, is definitely kind of on the decline.
I do see, at least until we have a better system, I do still see ads being something that, at least, I guess, we'll have to stick around at least for a bit, because I don't see... Right now, the only real alternative to doing ads is people paying for content, and then that brings us back to the whole paywall argument, where if they've never heard of you, why would they pay for you?
For sure, yeah. But I think that's why cryptocurrency systems like LBC are so good, because if you get LBC in, the LBC value can go up and down. Whereas if you're just sticking with the dollar, you're getting a dollar, and then what's that going to go up or down in relation to? If your main currency is the dollar, just $1 for you is going to be $1, even if the purchasing power changes. Whereas LBC, if it's maybe, how much is it one LBC at the minute?
Give me 1 sec. I can check. It is 3.4 cents.
Well, let's just say 3 cents.
Sure. Yeah, make the math easier.
At the minute, if one LBC is 3 cents and you can get maybe a few dozen of those a day easy, then let's say you hold on to those for a while, even a year from now, and it's maybe up to 10 cents. That's a much better return than just if you were getting dollars, because the dollar price would still be in dollars. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, but hopefully the point comes across.
No, I get exactly what you're saying. We can use a bit of a real world example. So when I actually bought in to LBC, it was at 0.7 cents. So I paid about 300 Australian dollars, bought, I don't know how much it was at the time, but let's just say 50,000 just to make the maths easy. And that 50, I still have that 50,000 LBC, but if I was to convert that back into whatever currency I want it to be, and whether that be USD, AUD, doesn't really matter. I still have that 50,000 LBC, and the value in the currency that I want to use, I guess, it's gone up, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, look at all the people that invested into Bitcoin early. look at the returns they've made.
And then all the people who didn't invest in it and just cry because they were around at the time.
Oh, would you believe I first heard about Bitcoin in maybe 2012? back when I was in my younger days trolling around the 4chan boards. And of course, I see it and think, that sounds interesting. I go into a thread. That looks complicated. I leave the thread. But the name stuck in my head for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I hear about it later, I see, oh, it's almost at $1,000. I think that was back in 2017, back when I was first getting into it. It was almost at $1,000 before the bull run started.
Mm-hmm.
And then I looked at the price in 2012, and I'm thinking, what have I done? Or what have I not done, I suppose. So, I mean, I think it's a good way to help monetize content. So, also we've got LBC in LBRY's case. But if you can get into a system like that quite early, then you make a decent investment in the future of the system by buying the credits. Then if you help the system grow, then you're going to be very well benefited in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have anything to say to that. I completely agree with what you're saying.
Just hopefully we can keep pushing LBRY further ahead. I keep saying we like I'm a big name, but yeah, hopefully someday.
Well, yeah, I may be a relatively big channel on LBRY, but outside of LBRY, I'm still like a fairly small creator. People like Scott have way more reach than I do.
I mean, I have 3 subscribers on YouTube, so you know, that speaks for itself, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whereas like 930.
Well, as I was saying, you look at like Scottsy Business, and he's got a platform on, or he's got a subscriber base on every platform that exists.
Oh, he does, yeah. Like so many I've never even heard of. And have you ever watched any of his annual listen to me, monthly reports where he talks about his income streams for all these different platforms?
Yeah, that's actually what got me back into buying crypto.
It's really cool. It's really, really cool.
I've been
some of the stuff
I was gonna say I've been looking at some of the proof of stake coins that he's been investing in, because I hadn't even heard of that before. Because I'm, as I said, I'm still really, really new to crypto, so I don't know. I see there's definitely interesting ways you can make some money besides just obviously buying it and then waiting for the value to increase.
Exactly. I mean, there's a very good platform. Would you know Coinbase? It's one of the biggest ways you can get crypto.
Yeah.
And then there's another platform that's much smaller, but pretty much the same service when you first look at it, crypto.com.
Mm-hmm.
They have like a crypto earn program where you can put in, let's say buy $100 worth of their CRO token. You actually get a 16% return on that annually if you stake it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Of course, the first thing people think about that is BitConnect. It's a Ponzi scheme. But the reason they're able to give such high returns in that is because they've got so many different products, and the CRO token is something they print themselves.
Well, it also depends on how they're actually doing the return. Like, for example, DLive does the same thing. I think its current return is 20%, but it's also a fee-sharing coin, so basically you get a portion of the fees that come through the platform.
Oh, okay, cool. I've not actually looked into DLive much.
I wish I'd got in on it early on, back when PewDiePie was still on it.
Yeah, he stopped, didn't he? How come? Did he ever give an explanation for that?
I don't believe so.
I mean, I know he took maybe a month off videos as a whole for a while.
Well, yeah, he'd honestly deserved a break. He's been working too hard for too many years.
He absolutely has. And even after the whole... what was it? I'm drawing so many blanks today. The other channel, the Indian channel he was up against.
I thought you were talking about the scandal that it was in with the bridge. Okay, no. That's a different thing.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Oh, you didn't know about that one?
No. What was that?
Let's see if I can describe it without getting my channel banned. So, he was playing PUBG at the time, and I think he got killed, and then out of anger, he said, "What a bunch of N-words."
Oh, yes. I do remember that now.
Yeah, so I thought that's what you were talking about, but no, when he was up against T-Series trying to beat his subscriber count.
T-Series, yeah. That's the one. And I mean, he put a lot of effort into doing all sorts of promotion for that, trying to make sure he held on to number one spot.
Mm-hmm.
So probably completely drained him for a while.
Yeah,
But
I can imagine it would.
the controversy would definitely hurt.
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch what thing you just said.
No, just saying that the N-word controversy would definitely have hurt. I mean, imagine if you said that today with all the riots going on. That could be the end.
Yeah, no, that you definitely don't want to. Just honestly, at this point, I'm just trying to avoid anything to do with that.
Yep, I'll maybe like a few tweets, and maybe have the odd sly comment on it, but I try to avoid it as much as possible.
Yeah, the US is the world's biggest social experiment, and it seems to be falling apart right now.
Oh, colossal failure. I can't see any way ahead outside of secession, but I mean that's probably a story for another day.
Yeah, well, I've been hearing talks of potentially a civil war at some point, but I don't know. I have no idea what's going to happen.
I think it already is a civil war. I think we're well into a civil war, and one side just hasn't realized it yet.
That could be it. We've certainly had the culture war for a couple of years, but whether it turns into actual gunfire is another question.
I mean, it's turned into quite a lot of beatdowns and a few murders.
Yeah, I have been hearing some of that.
It's absolutely nuts. I mean, I've tried to avoid all the cities. Thankfully, I live in a medium-sized town.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say too much where because I like to try and keep myself somewhat anonymous. But
nah, it's all good.
I live in a fairly sized town, so we've not really had to deal with much of that, thankfully. And I'm in a red state, so it's well armed, shall we say? So if anybody tried to tear down many of our statues, then it would not end well. Put it that way.
I think the weirdest thing about this is the fact that it's expanding outside of the US. We've actually had a couple of protests in Australia, and the same sort of problems that exist in America don't exist in this country.
It's completely different demographic makeup.
Well, Australia has its own sort of race problems. I don't know how much you know about Australian history, but
like the Aboriginals.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the stolen generation. So, if you know about that.
No.
Okay, so until about I think it would have been the late 1970s, we were actually separating Aboriginal parents from their children and basically raising the children in white families.
Oh wow!
I believe the explanation at the time would have been something along the lines of their culture is dying out, and basically this is just the better way to raise the children. So
trying a greater good argument to it.
Yeah, pretty much.
Sort of thing.
So Australia is a weird, it's really weird because we have people within living memory who were actually a part of this, whereas the US, a lot of the problems you've had, obviously you still had the civil rights problems until the 60s, but a lot of the problems that people bring up in the US are problems from hundreds of years ago, and it's a really weird country.
I think because people keep kind of kowtowing to the whole situation and entertaining the possibility of reparations, that I don't want to say the blacks, because it's not all about black people. I mean, half the problem is white liberals who kind of force the issue. So they really just kind of leave the door open for it. And that makes people think, okay, maybe we can get something out of this. But then it's definitely not about actually helping black people, because just black people's neighborhoods have been torn to absolute shreds. And so many completely innocent people who have nothing to do with any of these riots are getting hurt. It's just nuts.
I'm sure you saw some of the videos early on about some of the black business owners who were basically coming out and just yelling at the rioters and just crying and breaking down. It's like, why are you burning down my business? I'm trying to bring myself up in the world.
Exactly. Heartbreaking. These people trying so hard to make something for themselves, for their children and grandchildren, and then others are just destroying it in the name of equality. What's equal about that?
Yeah. Well, let's move on. Let's move off of that.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was Bitcoin's store of value.
Yes.
This is a very contentious issue between people who are into Bitcoin. So you have the Bitcoin maximalists who think that it's going to keep trending upwards forever. And then you also have the idea that it's more of a store of value, and it's, I guess, rather than being a way that you're going to become a millionaire, it's a way you're going to basically keep your money just, I guess, holding its value. So, judging by some of the stuff you've said, you seem to be more on the idea that it's more of a store of value than going to make you just an absolute millionaire, like some people seem to think.
I still think it has tremendous upside potential in terms of gains, but if you're looking to get a quick times 100 in your investment, then Bitcoin's not for you. Mm-hmm. Definitely not for you anymore. There's so many small market cap coins that are able to do that, and I mean, have you heard of Uniswap before? It's a decentralized exchange.
Yep.
So many scam coins going through there, and they're making massive returns, and then people are getting dumped on right after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've briefly heard of it.
Well, Bitcoin is far safer in that regard. It's not going to suddenly go up times 100, but it's also not going to drop to zero overnight. It's really unfeasible. So it has that store value aspect to it, but with increased adoption of the Lightning Network, where fees are able to be cheap and you're able to make fast transactions, it has a lot of potential as cash at the same time. So it's really got those two aspects to it. And I do think it's got a lot of store value potential. But at the same time, the network effect of Bitcoin is so huge. And if Lightning Network can be adopted, it can be really kind of scaled up to a massive extent. And at which point the value is going to shoot up again. There's really so many factors to say.
I was going to say that Bitcoin also has the benefit of being, when people who don't know anything about cryptocurrency, what they think of crypto being is Bitcoin. So it's got that name brand recognition. So
someone will say, "Oh, can I buy some Bitcoin?" rather than, "Oh, can I buy some cryptocurrency?"
Exactly.
It's like if you're talking about PC, the default a lot of people would go to would be Windows.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there is superior tech out there, and probably far superior tech in many regards, but it's still got the name recognition that kind of keeps it going.
Yeah. There are some other crypto platforms I did want to briefly talk about. I don't know how much you've looked into Steemit before, but do you at least know of the platform?
I know of it, and I know of the big divide that's happened recently. Is that where we're heading with this?
No, where I was going to go with it was more of a technical aspect, where I don't really see that platform having much of a future, just because of how complex it actually is to use. And this is one of the, going back to something we talked about earlier, why LBRY has a positive future, because it's so simple to use LBRY, whereas with Steemit, I don't know if you've even really looked too much into how the wallet works, but to actually...
I have, yeah.
Or I guess to post on the website, there's like 5 different keys you have.
Yes, you've got your public posting key, your sign-in key, you've got your private keys, so many different things.
Which is way too complicated.
Your average person is going to look at that and think, what the hell is this? And walk away completely. You need to be somewhat tech-savvy to even start to comprehend that sort of thing.
I was initially thinking of checking out like LBRY and Hive a bit more and actually putting my content up there, but then I realized they will grow a bit. There's definitely a tech community who will start using it, but outside of that, I don't think they have any chance of mass adoption.
I definitely wouldn't say those platforms have mass adoption, at least in their current state. But at the same time, it's kind of like the old days of internet forums. You've got people there that are very passionate about specific subjects, so they can kind of go there. They have a bit of barrier to entry, so they can kind of keep the community more cohesive. Whereas somewhere like Reddit, it's kind of a free-for-all.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it's got its benefits in its niche. But for mass adoption, unless they really overhaul their entry system, it's not going to be mass adopted. At least that's what I think about it anyway.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat about that. I do think they're interesting platforms, but the big problem I've noticed is even just remembering one password, most people don't want to do that. That's why a lot of people are, a lot of platforms are switching to doing things like email login. So basically, you just click the login button, put in your email, and then it'll send you an email verification code, and you just go from there. That's how LBRY does it. That's how on the Brave Creator platform it does it. So if you want to log into your creator profile, you don't actually put a password in. It just sends you a verification email every time you want to log in.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've become a big fan of Password Manager lately, just because I've got so many hundreds of accounts on various things, and it just makes things so much easier.
What are you actually using your Password Manager now?
Yeah, yeah.
What do you use as your Password Manager?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying, are you using it now? Yeah, I use Bitwarden, and I have it synced to my phone. I've got it in my Brave browser, and I've got it as a standalone desktop app.
Okay, yeah, I'm using Bitwarden now as well, and I used to use LastPass. I switched over to Bitwarden just because it's an open source platform, and I don't even know most of my passwords anymore. And
no, I'm saying I get them.
All I do now is just generate 60-character random strings, and it works great.
It was perfect because it's nice and secure that way, and like nobody can force a password out of you. You don't even know it. So, not that that's ever going to happen, but it's...
Yeah, you're definitely not valuable enough of a target to have that happen.
You don't know me? Yeah, that's true.
There's definitely arguments you can make about whether you should have an online password manager, but I think that might be a bit outside the scope for this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good channel called, Techlore at all?
The name's ringing a bell.
He does a lot of good videos about various aspects of online privacy and security, and I mean that's how I first heard about Bitwarden. And I mean, if anyone's interested, that's not a bad channel to look into it.
I'll check it out afterwards. Cool. I'm always up for new channels to check out, even though I don't really have time to look at them.
Time these days. Even in a lockdown, we're running out of time.
Well, I keep finding stuff for myself to do. So obviously, I make 7 videos a week, so that obviously takes up a bit of time.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I don't know. Actually, we can go to that. So, how long do you actually spend on one of those videos? Just on like one of your regular just educational videos, and how long do you spend on one of the history videos? Because I imagine the time difference is quite large.
Very large. So I can put out a video, just my general discussion sort of videos. I can put one out in maybe an hour to an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
From getting, I don't script them so much as I put down a list of things I want to talk about and kind of freeball it from that. So I will make that list. I will make the recording. I will get the video up and ready to upload, and it could be uploaded within an hour and a half, quite easy. But the story of money videos, I sometimes spend various days on them. It wouldn't be days like on end. It would be maybe
sure, of course, yeah,
a couple hours there. And so I'd say maybe it takes maybe 4 to 5 times the amount of time to get it done.
Mm-hmm.
And it depends on the topic as well, because the Great Depression one I just released, I knew a lot less about it. So it took even longer to produce just because I needed to do a bit more research and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just completely talking out my ass. So I wanted to make sure I actually had a decent grasp on what I was talking about. I mean, I'm definitely not an expert on the topic, but if I can at least explain the surface level and a bit of depth to it, then I think I've done my job.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the same approach to my sort of videos. I take a bit longer for mine. So I don't know if you actually checked out anything before you came onto the podcast, but I mainly do...
I have watched it.
Sorry?
Yeah, I watched a few, yeah.
Okay, yeah, cool. So I mainly do the Linux tutorial content. So my usual approach to that is I will play around, if I'm going to, check out Bitwarden, for example, what I'll usually do is play around with the software for maybe an hour or so, take some notes while I'm doing it, and then sort of arrange the notes into an order of topics I want to hit. then I try to record in about an hour or so. I am actually really bad at speaking most of the time. It's not just the fact that I'm tired right now. I typically, when it comes to the more technical videos where I'm trying to actually hit on certain points, I tend to stumble over my words pretty frequently. For the more rambly stuff like the podcast, I can generally string sentences together, but for the technical stuff, I will trip over my tongue constantly, so a 15-minute video, it will take me like an hour to record. And because of that, it ends up taking maybe half an hour to 40 minutes to actually go and edit it. And then obviously render time on that. So maybe, for me, 3 or so hours per video, I reckon.
I mean, to be fair, that's not a bad return. Pretty good. But, I mean, I'm the exact same when it comes to stumbling over my words. I mean, I've not been too bad today, but the amount of retakes I do, even if I'm sitting reading off a script, like my Story of Money videos, I completely script. It's just read off the screen, record. Like, I'll find myself either stumbling over a very easy word. What was the word? There's a word the other day, it took me like 10 takes to get right. And it's something I could say in real life, not a problem. But just reading it off the screen, I kept tripping and just record, delete, and so on. It's just a completely different process.
Yeah, I'm the same with a lot of the... occasionally with just random programs that I use on a frequent basis. So I use a window manager called BSPWM, which, as you can probably work out, is very easy to trip over.
Yeah,
or like
definitely.
SXHKD, very, very easy to trip over that. And I've tried to say it a couple of times, and I do like 10 retakes just trying to say this one word.
But the funny thing is, you said them perfectly just now.
I know I did. As soon as I have as soon as I'm recording for a video, though, it'll fall apart.
What is it that makes that happen? Is just, we think it's maybe the pressure of knowing this has to be right, this has to be perfect. Whereas on a podcast, we can just kind of chat away casually and not really worry too much.
Yeah, I think that with the podcast, especially once you forget about the fact that you're actually recording, it's kind of just having a chat with someone, and really when you're chatting with someone, you're not really thinking as much about what you're trying to say. If you kind of stumble over stuff, whatever, you're just talking to someone. But if you're trying to be like, I want to educate people, especially once once you're good enough at recording content that you know where you're going wrong, I think that's the point where you start picking up your mistakes more often, that's for sure. Because I know I made tons of mistakes early on, but now that I'm good enough at making videos, I know how bad I am at making videos.
I mean, I like your point about how different it is between the videos and the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was just thinking to myself when you were saying that. Imagine you're trying to educate someone, and you're in the middle of a speech, and then you say, what's that word? And then you leave that take in.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how unprofessional does that sound? Whereas on a podcast, everyone knows it's a chat, so you don't need to worry so much about it.
Exactly, yeah. I pretty much completely agree with that. One thing that we did skip over earlier, I brought it up because I did want to talk about it, but welfare programs, you've mentioned them quite a few times in your videos.
Yes.
And we talked just for a moment about the increase in welfare programs during COVID. Where do you actually see this going? Do you see this as being sort of like experiment for what's to come with the future of automation, or do you just see it as something that sort of had to be done while this massive pandemic was pretty much happening?
See, I'm kind of in mixed minds about it. Initially I thought, no, I oppose these welfare programs with the stimulus checks, but then I thought the entire reason COVID came over here is because governments kind of screwed the pooch a bit. They didn't shut down the borders immediately. They didn't. The WHO covered up for China.
Yeah, well,
so
that's definitely interesting. That's for sure.
Well, it's a lot of government incompetence that caused the problem in the first place, and then the citizens end up suffering. So when I thought of it like that, I thought, okay, maybe the welfare program in this case, I understand the case for it.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely can see how a lot of people will get used to this. And as soon as it's threatened to take away, the politicians might think, right, if we take this away, we might lose votes.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see it sticking around. And as you said, with automation increasing, people are talking constantly about the possibility of maybe having UBI, which, in my opinion, I don't think that can work long term. It can work and be sustainable for short term, but then the inherent human laziness kind of sets in, where you'll get a lot of people just thinking, all right, I'll just sit here and let everybody else do the work and capitalize. Mm-hmm. But then as more and more people end up doing that, the system kind of collapses in on itself. Even with automation being able to take care of a lot of the more tedious jobs.
When it comes to automation, I'm actually very much on the optimistic side with it for... Actually, I guess it's optimistic side for what it can do, not optimistic side for the future of people. But there's a lot of people who think that there's a lot of jobs that can't really be automated by... Just can't really be automated. So things... I guess some of the more creative jobs, but after doing a research paper earlier this semester on, I guess I think, what was it on? Something like AI creativity or something like that, or I don't remember the exact topic of the paper. I should remember, I wrote it like 2 weeks ago. But reading a lot of other research about AI creativity and what creativity really is, I don't really see it as being a limitation of an AI system that... Well, I don't really see creativity being a limitation of an AI system. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be possible. And that is a scary future to imagine without some sort of system that... I don't know if it has to be a UBI system or just... I don't know. Without some sort of system to, I guess, get people... get people fed, you're really in a weird situation. I don't know if it has to be UBI or you have to give people menial labor for the sake of menial labor, but something will have to be done to make sure people can actually afford stuff in the future when we've hit the point where there is no work left.
Well, I definitely think we're going to be in for a bit of a population decline on the whole. Not just in like white countries where the population is already kind of low, and Japan where it's going down as well. Mm-hmm. But I think as automation and AI really develops, it's going to just be... I mean, it sounds extreme when I say this, but it'll probably be a much slower process. I think a lot of the population is going to end up dying off because of it. Mm-hmm. And it could be over decades. I don't know. But I definitely agree in that I don't see how there's a limitation on AIs being able to be creative. Considering the fact that if you ask me or if you ask someone 10,000 miles away, we might have completely different definitions of what creativity is. So AI could conform to so many different types of creativity, and even ones we may never have even thought of. So it could be very adaptable in that regard.
Well, one thing that I know a lot of people, if you were to ask people maybe 10 years ago about what a future AI system would be capable of, there would be a lot of people who, even with some of the stuff that is being done now, so I don't know how much you know about AI, but there are AI systems that conduct things like chemistry experiments and actually try to create their own new theories about, I guess, the state of chemistry. And this isn't something that people really thought were possible even a good 10 years ago. And you have other examples like the system that won in Jeopardy, which I'm blanking on the name, by IBM, I don't remember. And other things like this where a system like that it's a very rudimentary level of creativity, but it's still at a point where you can call it some basic level of creativity.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's all data, isn't it? If they see the data going one way, they can then maybe try and come up with a theory as to why the data goes that way. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, even from someone who's completely non-technical like myself, then I can completely understand how it can do things like that. At least on the surface level, anyway, without actually knowing the programming and code behind it.
Mm-hmm. Even if we'll take it back to something that maybe not... I don't see creative jobs disappearing anytime soon, but let's just bring it back to something that is actually happening right now. So we have the automation of things like... not low-skill jobs, but very robotic jobs. So things like flipping burgers in a kitchen. There's already machines that can do that, and the only reason they're not being used right now is because they're just not cost effective yet. Or we have other things like the automation of the driving industry. So Tesla keeps saying they want to roll out 10,000 automated cars by the end of the year. That's not happening, but they'll be doing it soon. And then you have the automation of the truck driving industry and things like this. So we obviously need something to handle this in the short term, and I don't know how that can really be done.
I just kind of want to go back to your point about the cost effectiveness.
Mm-hmm.
You see places like California saying, okay, $15 per hour for flipping burgers. The more you increase the wages in that regard,
mm-hmm.
then the more cost effective it becomes to invest in the robots that can flip the burgers. I mean, that's why so many cashiers end up being replaced by those screens. The touch screens. So I think a lot of people end up creating their own problems by demanding too much.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, of course, it leaves us in our current situation. But as for what the solution is, short term or long term, I don't honestly know. I have no idea. It's a interesting and scary at the same time.
Yeah, this will be a very interesting generation. Like, I don't... It's obviously impossible to make predictions like this, but I imagine this is probably what it would be like at the start of something like the, why am I forgetting this? The...
Terminator?
No. I mean something that's happened in the past. The big technological boom that happened in the 1800s.
Industrial Revolution.
That one. I imagine this is what it would be like just before the Industrial Revolution. You don't have it. You can see something's coming along the horizon, but you have no idea what it is. It could destroy everything, or in the case with that, you had massive economic growth. I don't know what's going to happen.
I mean, a good example I like to go back to is farming and horse carts.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people, most people were farmers, or people would use a lot of horses for transport for military or just pulling carriages. And if you said to them, okay, here's a car, they would say, no, don't replace me with that. But then whenever that happened, people eventually found something else to do. Same with farming. The more automated it became, people moved on and found something different.
Mm-hmm.
So my hope is that we will find something different. We might not know what that is yet, but hopefully we can find it. But at the same time, the more advanced an AI gets, closer it gets to being able to replicate more and more aspects of what humans can do. So, and like I said, with the creativity part, then potentially that could be out the window too in a few decades.
Well, I imagine there'll always be once we do have a massive AI revolution like this, there'll always be like niche businesses where it's like, oh, this is a human-run cafe. Like, that'll always exist. Like, people will want some sort of, like, human interactivity, but I can't imagine that everyone could do jobs like that. And same with doing, like, entertainment jobs. Yeah, you'll have AI entertainment, but I imagine there will still be a market for people who actually make stuff themselves. But I can't imagine that's something that everyone would be able to do.
I mean, it's a good point when you bring up entertainment. If you think music, if you think comedy, how good are AI going to be at those particular things? I mean, music at the same time, I suppose, they can study the data on what people like, what people listen to, what people regard as good,
mm-hmm.
and replicate to some degree, maybe a change in various other degrees. But how close is that, I suppose, is what I'm kind of getting at. I'm kind of at a loss for words, because the more you think about it, the more confused you get. And you think, okay, maybe we don't really have an easy way out of this at all.
I think the only thing we can say conclusively is that we're going to have some massive changes over the next maybe 15, 20 years. That's the only conclusive thing you can say.
I would say so, yeah. It's the only thing we can be certain of is the uncertainty.
Pretty much. So, moving on from that, you've brought up the idea of purchasing property from time to time.
Yes.
And I had something to do with this. Right. I should have actually written down questions rather than written down points.
No, it's fine.
Let's see, where can we go with this? I don't know where I was going to go with this. Something about purchasing property.
It's expensive. I can say that.
It's definitely expensive, especially if it's in the city.
Oh yeah. It's more costly in the city, and you're getting far less for it.
Yeah, one of the things that I have been... obviously, I can't do it just yet, but one thing I do want to do is I eventually do want to get some like rural property. I don't know how much cheaper it is in wherever you are, but in my state, I could get like a 5-6 acre property for 200,000, and 200,000 in the city is barely going to get you like a half a 1-room apartment.
Yeah, small studio. At best. Yeah, it's not too far off that here as well.
Yeah. Obviously, the Australian dollar is worth considerably less than the US dollar, but
But you also have property to kind of compensate at the same time, so it kind of works itself out there.
Yeah, I don't know where I was going to go with that point.
Well, when you say looking to buy a rural property, is it like to maybe like start your own sort of homestead, to garden, grow your own food, or
yeah, I have
just have a bit more?
It's a bit of freedom, a bit of kind of want to start my own thing because I want to have like my family did have a bit of property and then my parents split up and then that ended up getting sold. So I don't want to end up like when I eventually have kids, I don't want to end up leaving them with basically nothing. Just like, oh, here's a bit of inheritance. It's not land or anything. You kind of have to like go get your own place. I don't want to put my descendants in a situation like that. I want to be able to, I guess, buy something like land and then pass it on. And even if it's not like, even if it's like nothing much, it's still something that you can pass on. And land, as you've said in lots of videos, is one of the most valuable things you can purchase.
Yeah, it's very, very tangible and it's got a lot of applications. Whether that's house, farming, or even just being able to have the space you want. Because, like in a city, if you're in an apartment, chances are, unless you're on the ground floor, you're getting no garden, or you're getting maybe a tiny balcony that you can maybe grow some plants on. But it's just very, very cramped, very condensed, and I mean, so many studies show how much happier people in rural areas are compared to being in a city.
Yeah, well, back to the apartment for just a bit. Even if you purchase an apartment room, like a apartment, whatever, studio apartment, can you really say that you own it because someone else owns the building?
Exactly. That's funny enough. That's a point I made to my wife a few weeks back. So we were looking at buying a house in like sort of suburban area, and what do you call it in Australia? Maybe would it be semi-detached?
Yeah.
So you have
same thing.
Yeah, we were looking at something like that, and I said no, because do we really own it if we can't knock down every wall ourselves? Because you're kind of bound by the rules of what you share with that other person, whether it's a wall or your border is joined perfectly. So, I mean, take that and apply it to apartment. It's even bigger. Someone else owns a building. Someone else owns walls connected to your walls. In fact, it's the same wall, really. So, what do you own? What don't you own? It's the line's so blurry, and it's so easily exploited at the same time. Someone sells a building, they can change all sorts of aspects, like maybe even change your water rates because they own the building, or it depends on, of course, protections from government or various contracts, but it really just, it makes all the lines so blurry.
Well, that is part of the reason I do want to get out of, like, I'm not living in the city, I live in the suburbs. I'm pretty close to the city. It's only like a half-hour drive, so it's not too far. But this is about as close as I could like tolerate being to the city. The place I'm in right now is like what would you even call a house that's not attached to another house? Just a regular house. It's not. We have fences on either side of the house.
Detached, maybe.
I don't know. It's a proper house. It's not attached to another building.
Yeah, I would say detached.
So, right, and if I was to actually buy my own place, because right now I'm renting, the easiest way to do that would just be able to move like out into the country. Plus, I do have a lot of like rural family out in the rural areas anyway, because that's where a lot of my family did come from. Because a lot of I guess from my mother's side, a lot of them were like farming families, and then starting with my mother's generation, they started moving like inwards because that's where the work really was being. If you didn't want to be a farmer,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of people are going to struggle with that as the cities get bigger. There's going to be less and less work, and they don't really know where to go.
And as automation kind of increases, going back to our previous point, like things like if there's self-driving cars, then that's going to take over the bus routes. It's going to take over trains. It's going to take over taxis. It's going to be very, very hard to find so many different types of jobs, like you say. So people are going to come out trying to find something in the countryside because like the big advances in tech don't always make their way to the small towns as fast.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Especially with like where my mother's living right now. They like you go there and it feels like you've stepped back like 15, 20 years because like obviously there is still a lot of advancements out there, but because there's not as much money being circulated in that area, it takes a lot longer for that to actually expand. Also, at least in this area, there's a lot of elderly people as well, so they're not really dying to buy the newest tech anyway.
Yeah, they don't really care, and in some ways it's great. Like I'm in two minds about it. Sometimes I like going out and it's completely refreshing, thinking, "Wow, I can just put my phone away and just don't want to sound like a hippie, I guess, but you can just be. You can just go out and just do what you want, and you don't need to worry about being connected all the time." Whereas if you're in a city or in a town, you're constantly thinking, right, I need to check my phone, need to be able to get a map to wherever I need to go, or need to get in the car and drive somewhere, GPS on, or it kind of fries the brain a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it's a bit too much stimulation from all of the tech that's around you.
Yeah, definitely. Stimulation, that's the right word.
Yeah, I'm surprised I managed to come up with that one.
Well, my alternative by the brain, so.
Yeah, well, with me as well, because I've got my webcam on, I've got these lights that are shining in my face right now, so it makes it even harder to think than it otherwise would be.
Yeah, because it's an extra stimulus that your brain has to process.
So I'm probably gonna like lay down on my bed as soon as this is over, and then try to like adjust to it being nighttime now. But we'll see how that goes.
I suppose if you're in the southern hemisphere, would you potentially be in your winter now?
What season are you in?
We're in summer.
Yes, I'm in winter.
Okay.
I don't remember when winter started. I only know it's cold, so I'm going to assume it's either autumn or winter. I don't actually keep track of the season.
Just go based on feeling.
Yeah, pretty much.
If it works, it works. Yeah.
Well, by cold, I mean it's like 12 degrees Celsius, which, I don't know, that's not really that cold.
Australian cold.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, anything below like 15 degrees Celsius is too cold, which...
I spent some time in the UK, so I know what cold really is.
So look, just for the people who are too lazy to learn a real measurement system, I'll just find out what that is in Fahrenheit. 15 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit is 59. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Because I know that most of my viewers are American, and yeah, it just makes it easier.
I've spent enough time abroad that I can kind of flick between the systems, depending on who I'm talking to. Like I tend to use meters a lot more than I would use like yards.
Yeah. I think the only time I really use anything outside of the metric system is for height. It's just easier to do height in feet and inches. Like, everyone knows what you're talking about when you... Yeah, pretty much. Like, everyone knows what you're talking about when you say 6 feet.
Exactly. I know. I can see the American system. I know we're very stubborn. So eventually, the metric system will come here in full.
Well, I've heard the main reason why it isn't done is because it would just be too expensive to switch over. I don't know how true that is.
Different materials. I mean, even measuring cups.
Mm.
But it's funny. Even some of the cooking utensils I've got here, they have both imperial and metric at the same time. So I think it's being probably gradually, very, very gradually phased in some areas.
I think the argument I heard about was mainly just the speed signs.
That would be the biggest one. Definitely the biggest one.
And then obviously you'd have to... Well, no, your big problem would be speedometers, because if you changed over the speed signs, then everyone's cars wouldn't line up with the speed signs then. So you'd have to have, like, dual signs or something like that.
See, I've got a European car.
Ah.
And it's got miles and kilometers on the little speedometer at the same time, so I can see which is which.
That's pretty cool.
Like the digital display is all in miles, but the manual ones, with the little stick.
Ah, yep.
It's got.
Yeah, I've got a what is it? It's a 2001 Holden Barina. It's a rebadge of like a I think an Opal of some sort. So it's got the European layout for the window wipers and the blinkers, which was really confusing when I first started driving.
A lot to get used to, yeah.
Yeah, now when I buy my next car, it's going to be even just as confusing.
Well, another good car example is I used to drive stick, but now I switched to automatic just because of my wife. Mm-hmm. But then getting back into something that's manual is such a difference.
I never actually learned how to drive manual. I really should do it, but it's becoming less and less of a problem with newer cars.
Yeah, exactly. So many are switching over to almost exclusively automatic. And I mean, I like driving manual because you kind of feel more in control and kind of get a bit of an ego about it. But I just love the laziness of being able to just hop in a automatic and just drive smooth sailing. No need to worry.
Especially if you ever have to go like into any really populated areas. I can imagine driving a manual is probably a pain.
It can be,
you just have to stop and start for traffic constantly. I can't imagine that's good for your knees.
I mean, keeps you moving. You're not sitting stiff. Anytime I'm in automatic, one of my legs is just kind of sitting there doing nothing. The rest is just the other ones just flicking between accelerator and brakes.
Yeah, maybe automatic makes you a bit too lazy when you drive.
I mean, I've had to do a 6-hour road trip where it's just been me driving because my wife was just sleeping in the passenger seat. So like halfway through, I just had to stop and move for a while because it was just the leg that was being used to drive was tired, but at least it was getting some movement. But then the other leg is it's like asleep the whole time.
Yeah, I've got a 2-hour drive to do on Friday because I'm going to go visit my parents. And 2 hours is even that's too long to be in a car. You have to stop for a little bit.
If you don't mind me asking, whereabouts in Australia are you based?
The Adelaide Hills. So
okay.
I'd say about half an hour drive from the capital.
Canberra, is that?
Capital of South Australia, not capital of the country.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my French is not great, but I have a picture of it in my head.
Let's bring up a picture of the Adelaide Hills. That is a really... Yeah, we'll use this one. I'll send you a picture. This is fairly descriptive of how the Adelaide Hills tends to look around every summer.
Fire into Google. Ooh, nice.
Yeah, we get lots of bushfires.
Oh yeah, 2020's been so crazy. I completely forgot that was at the start of this year.
Oh yeah, I forgot as well because it happens every year. The American news kind of made it seem like it was some think that like it never happens, but no, we get big fires every year. Yes, it was bigger than normal, absolutely, but big fires like that are a pretty common thing.
Is it not meant to be good for the forests? It's meant to, or the jungles, or whatever you suppose you would call it. Is it
Forest
not
would
meant
be
to?
the better word for it, yeah.
Yeah. Is it not meant to be good for the soil and then helps promote the new plant growth? Is that right? Or
Yeah, no, that's right. The problem was that there was a lot of fires being started by people. You had the initial fires get started. I think those were maybe car crashes or something, but then there were people actually joining in, actually starting fires.
That's nuts.
I think during that we also might have had some thunderstorms as well, which didn't help either.
Just one thing after another, it all kind of escalated.
Yeah. This year has been absolutely insane.
Don't read the story of this year. Yeah. One thing leads to another, then everything's crazy. Pandemic, zombies. I mean, I'm scared for December. I want to see what's happening in December.
I hope we just go back to normal. That'd be nice.
That'd be nice, but I'm not used to nice anymore.
One thing I do hope that does come out of this is maybe people are going to be more appreciative, but I don't see it.
No, I think it'll take a much bigger impact to people's life to make people appreciate what they have more. I mean, it's like the whole boiled frogs thing. If you slowly turn up the heat, then they just get used to it. But if you turn it up quickly, it'll jump out. And I think it's kind of got to be the same principle here. If things just change bit by bit, people are going to just be used to it and think, no, this is normal. But then if suddenly something's changed very fast, that's when people think, oh my gosh, we had it so good before.
Yeah, that's a fair point, actually. Because even though it doesn't seem like it's been a crazy escalation, if the race wars that are happening in the US right now just started out of nowhere, I think people would be taking them a bit more seriously than they are. You're probably right about that.
Yeah, there's been tensions for so long. It was kind of inevitable.
Well, also the fact that this year's just been absolutely insane.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy, but I mean, it's at the same time. Like when you look at the news, you think, "Wow, this is happening everywhere." But I've seen nothing of the sort. And my town's fairly mixed ethnicity. A lot of Hispanics, but we have very little problems.
Mm-hmm.
Very few. It always seems to escalate in the big cities, and then because it happens in the cities, that's where the big media is, and that's when it gets broadcast and made to be such a massive deal. I mean, it is a big deal, of course, but
of course, yeah.
I think it's overblown in terms of how many people of different races are really invested in it. At least that's been what I've seen so far, anyway.
I like to imagine it as Twitter has just come to life a bit too much.
Yeah, it's Twitter manifest in reality.
Like if you just ask some regular Joe what he thinks about just some Hispanic guy down the street, he probably has like, oh, whatever, it's just a dude, doesn't matter.
Exactly. Doesn't care. He's happy to just do his thing, and
like, I've got my job to go to. Yeah. I don't care about him.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, he doesn't have his job to go to right now, probably.
Yeah. Well, I mean, around here we're not too bad. We're mostly back to normal.
Okay, cool.
But for a while it was very frustrating. I'm lucky that in my job I can work from home, so I don't have to go into my office or anything. I was able to kind of roll with it, and I think a lot of people kind of take that for granted because I know so many people that were just housebound with nothing to do, and I mean that would play on anyone. But when I'm able to occupy 8 hours a day, for that start I didn't really think of anything of it, but now I think, wow, I got very lucky.
Yeah, well, for me, I've been working retail during all of this, so that's been an interesting experience.
I bet, yeah.
Well, grocery retail as well, so pretty much the only place where everyone's meeting at.
It's the busiest place, definitely.
Yeah, I'm lucky I wasn't working day shifts. I'm a night filler, so I still get to avoid most of that, but even then, you were still getting tons of people showing up during all of that, and it was... During the peak of that, I guess early on, I was thinking this was going to be another Ebola scare like we saw a couple years back, or H1N1, or all of the other pandemic scares we've seen in the past couple of years. And then I don't know what happened, but something changed, and all of a sudden it became super serious.
I have a theory, and it's a bit of a conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it was in part. I do believe it's a very serious disease, but I think it's been overblown somewhat. But I also think that the government, as a whole, kind of wanted to test the limits of what they could get away with in terms of a lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
But that's probably just the cynic in me. So I'm very cynical sometimes.
I've definitely heard similar things to that, for sure.
I mean, I've had family members who have had it, and they've said it's not.
Oh. Oh. You're back?
Pretty horrifying. But whether it's been, I don't know, another strain or various mutations, when it's hit here, it's had a high death toll. But when you look at the numbers, it's a lot more older people getting affected by it. Even though, of course, that is still serious and
of course, yeah. What just happened then? You dropped out for a bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Wait, did you not notice anything on your side? Because you completely disappeared from the call on my side.
Oh, really? Oh, sorry. No, I didn't realize.
Oh.
I thought my speaker went off because I heard you speak and then suddenly it was very quiet.
Okay, so you did actually drop out. It just auto-connected again. Okay, that makes sense.
Sorry, where did you last hear to?
I'm not even sure. I think I got the gist of what you were saying, though.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
So how long do you actually want to take this for? Because we're almost at 2 hours now.
I mean, I'm happy. Whenever you run out of topics, I'm happy. But
okay, cool.
Up to you. Leave it up to you.
Cool, because I don't know how long you want to stay around, because what is it, 5 in the morning now or something like that? 4 in the morning?
Yeah, it's about just after 5.
5. When do you sleep?
I don't sleep for very long, to be honest. I tend to kind of average about 6 hours a night.
That's not as bad as I expected.
Well, it's just the way my work shift goes. But hopefully that will change at some point soon. But see, because of the job I work, I am very bound by times.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of do what's called butterfly shifts. So for a certain amount of time, we'll work at one period of time, and then somebody will take over from you right after you clock off. And then maybe in a few months, they'll completely rotate it. So I'll be working the days and then sleeping the nights. Whereas now I kind of sleep late evening to very early morning. And then
that sounds gross.
More written out. But
it's
kind of explaining it's tricky. That's not great, but I mean, my wife's used it. She's still in bed.
Well, I guess if you're fine with it, it works.
Yeah, it works. But whenever we eventually have kids, it'll be a different story. So definitely not forever.
Yeah, that's for sure. I do know a couple of people who do those like overnight shifts and they have kids, and I don't know how they do it.
Oh, it must be very taxing. But at the same time, at least you can get up, do your work, come back, take the kids to school, and then sleep.
Yeah. I guess it would be fine if they were a bit older. Like, if they were old enough to take care of themselves, but if they're still at that young age where, like, they'll still need you, like, throughout the night, then I don't know how you could possibly, like, get any sleep like that.
Oh, it'd be hell. And your work performance would suffer.
Oh. I've just kind of been coming up with topics off, like, just based on what we've been going on, really. I think, do I have one more left on here? Diversification, there we go. We'll talk about that for a bit. So,
go for it.
What do you actually have your money in right now? So, you don't have to be super specific, but how are you actually splitting up the way that you're doing your investing?
Well, I probably couldn't tell you exact percentages off the top of my head, but I have
rough ideas.
Investments I have a large investment in land, but I also have large investments in crypto, and then kind of small to medium investments in gold and silver.
You have talked about how you do like gold and silver quite a bit in some of your videos.
Pardon?
I said you do. You have talked quite a bit about how you like gold and silver in a bunch of your videos, but how it's been, I guess, a tried and true way of storing value.
It has, yeah, and it's got a lot of industrial use, particularly silver. I mean, any electronic computing device you have tends to have some degree of silver, so it's always going to have demand, even if the price fluctuates. And I mean, there's a lot of talk about how the price is being suppressed because of paper silver compared to physical hard silver, just because it's the best way I suppose to think of it's kind of like fractional reserve banking. You own something in paper, even if that can't be backed up.
Right. So you have even though you actually have a silver-backed currency, you're still seeing the same sort of inflation that you can see with fiat currencies.
Exactly. Welcome to banking. That's yeah. So
sort of defeats the purpose of having the silver backing.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm always an advocate for holding physical over paper or digital. But obviously, when it comes to crypto, you hold digital, and that's all you've got. But at least it's got an immutable ledger system to kind of keep it going. Whereas silver is not really the same. It's not crypto based. It's just, I suppose, it's computer based, I guess, but it's not secure necessarily.
Well, when it does come to crypto, there are some coins that actually do expand the amount of coins that do exist within their system. Ethereum being one example of a coin that does do that.
Yes, it has inflation, yeah.
So it's not like
they are
crypto is
switching to the proof, so that'll hopefully stop, or at least it'll go down at least. I mean, there's enough Ethereum in the ecosystem, and it's divisible enough that there's certainly not going to be any sort of supply shortage, not for centuries.
Yeah. Because the point I was about to say was, it's not like crypto is necessarily immune to the idea of inflation.
Oh yeah, exactly. I mean, even Bitcoin is still it's inflationary until the halving is so each having the amount being minted gets smaller and smaller until we hit that 21 million mark. So eventually it'll be so small, the introduction of new Bitcoin will be so small that there'll not be any real inflation to it. And I mean, it's the same for a lot of currencies. I mean, I think even LBRY credits, it's a hard cap of, what is the hard cap in LBRY credits? I know it's got a hard cap, but
let's find out.
Is it a billion?
A billion sounds right.
I think it's a billion.
I'm going to find out. LBC. I don't... Not stuff from the UK. LBC coin. It is... 1,083,222,000.
Oh, yeah, so I got CoinGecko up here myself. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I see the circulating supply is maybe just about 2/5 of that. So I mean, until it hits the top, until it hits the full supply, it's gonna be somewhat inflationary. But then whenever it hits the cap, that's it. Unless they change the protocol to say, okay, we're gonna mint more, or we're gonna be able to mine more, then that's when it becomes deflationary, because eventually you'll get stuff lost over time just to various ignored closed accounts or someone who's lost their keys. So it's still inflationary to a point, and then it'll switch, go the other way.
So you can let's see what was I trying to say, right? So there's maybe I should think of what I'm trying to say first. Within the next couple of years, I'm not sure when Bitcoin will actually hit its, or at least not maybe hit its max supply, get to the point where the halving is so low that getting to that max supply is going to take basically forever. Over the next couple of years, while we're getting closer to that, it's still going to be obviously inflationary, but then once that shift does happen where the growth is so small, that's where you could start seeing, I guess, that shift in how the currency actually does grow. If that made any sense.
I mean, there's also a degree of adoption. Let's say the user base stays the exact same. It doesn't really expand much more, but still being used regularly within the user base. Then, if it becomes more deflationary, then the price should theoretically go up. But if the user base expands, then that means there's more demand for it, so the price is going to go up anyway. So so many aspects to it, really.
Yeah, I think anyone who... I obviously don't know a ton about how the price is going to behave, but I think anyone who says they know exactly what's going to happen is trying to...
They're lying.
They're trying to... Yeah, they're lying and they're trying to sell you something.
Probably, yeah. I mean, you see so many thumbnails saying, a Bitcoin to $100,000, and you think, yeah, but when? Because you're definitely not talking about a week.
Well, yeah, it can go to $100,000 tomorrow if the US just triples their supply of money.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, because it's $100,000, but compared to what? Compared to USD, which, if it keeps inflating, then of course the value in relation to Bitcoin is going to be more in terms of dollars.
I think that's one of the cool things I do like about your channel, where you're trying to take the approach away from just looking at the pure USD value and actually looking at what it's actually worth. So going back to obviously the house example again with the gold, where obviously the amount of currency that you spend, the amount of USD you spend on a house is considerably larger, but the value of the house has, if you're going to go buy something that actually has a physical backing, has actually gone down.
In terms of gold, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I don't know what it's like with other... It could have gone up with silver, I have no idea. But the point I was getting at was you're taking a different approach rather than simply looking at, the Bitcoin is at this value in USD. It's more like what the Bitcoin could actually purchase.
Exactly. What's the point of large numbers if you don't get anything for those large numbers?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what was the country? Was it Zimbabwe? Not 100%. I think it might have been Zimbabwe. What they did is they just took the last two zeros off the currency.
I think it was Zimbabwe.
Might not even been two, but they took a few zeros off, and then really, it's just illusion. It's just card tricks.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't actually change anything about the currency. It's still the same value, really.
How many zeros did you say?
I think it was 2, but it's probably a lot more.
It was 10.
And holy crap! Wow.
Oh wait, no, sorry. I've got a better number. It was 12, apparently.
10 plus 2. Perfect. There we go.
So that would turn 10 billion of their... I don't know what the Zimbabwe currency was called. 10 billion of the currency into one of it.
I think it's called Zimbabwe's.
Is that what it was called?
No, I'm just making that up.
Okay, well. Zimbabwean dollar, apparently. Well, okay, that works.
That works, yeah. Keep it simple.
That is absolutely insane.
It is crazy. I mean, when I was younger, I used to think about things like Korean won. So the Korean won has a lot of zeros, and well, not maybe a crazy amount. It's got a few zeros extra to it, and you think if you have 1 won, then how really do you spend that? But then I kind of had to think about it. How we have dollars, we technically do have 2 extra zeros when we talk about cents.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know what my point is. It's just I think it's interesting.
I think there's probably a point there somewhere.
Went somewhere, but I just find it fascinating how you can add extra zeros, you can take away zeros, but what you're buying is still the same.
I don't know much about that currency. Does it actually have a smaller denomination than just the full 1 thing?
It's something. I don't think so. I think it's just 1. I mean, we don't really necessarily need the decimal places. We could just as easily say, instead of having $1 and 10 cents, we could just times everything by 100 and say $110. But you're still going to be able to buy it for it. It just sounds bigger.
That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
it's like when you get to Bitcoin and Satoshis. I mean, you have, what is it? The Bitcoin's divisible to 8 decimal places. Mm-hmm. So you could say, I've got 1 Bitcoin, or you could say, like, I've got, like, 10 million? I think it's 10 million. 10 million Satoshis.
Yeah.
10 million Satoshis sounds more impressive, but really it's the same thing.
I'm sure someone is going to complain that there's some mathematical reason why that's different with Bitcoin, but I don't know.
I mean, it's the same principle. It's just a unit of account, really.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you watch episode 1, that's one of the key principles of money. It needs to be a unit of account.
Yeah, when you first said that point, I wasn't really sure what you were trying to say there, and then you went and actually explained, oh, okay, well, it means basically you have, I guess, denominations. It's like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Which comes back to the Zimbabwe point. You take off the zeros, you've still got a unit of account for it, but it doesn't really change anything.
Yeah.
It's just the way you measure.
What was the point of Zimbabwe doing that?
I think it's because the citizens had to actually take wheelbarrows worth of their currency to be able to do their grocery shopping.
Right.
You're taking a whole wheelbarrow full of their Zimbabwe dollar, and you leave with an empty wheelbarrow. Well, not empty wheelbarrow. You leave with your groceries in the wheelbarrow, but you have to leave the wheelbarrow, the currency within the wheelbarrow, there to pay for it because it was inflated to such a ridiculous degree.
I know that a similar thing happened with Venezuela as well.
It did, yeah. I don't think it was to the same degree, but it was still huge. It was massive.
Let's find out how bad Venezuela got. Venezuela currency. Wait, is this talking about the current one they use?
The Bolivar, I believe.
Let's see. Let's find out. Venezuela's currency worth more as craft paper than as money.
Wow.
That's amusing. That is from Al Jazeera. Great news source. I
just looked up a Venezuela inflation calculator, and the inflation rate is, compared to 2020 to 1980, the 40-year difference, it's, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 digits times higher.
What?
That's how worthless it's become.
Jeez, that is... I don't even know what to say about that.
I would say crypto might be your friend.
There does seem to be a lot of people on LBRY who are in places like Venezuela and other countries that do have a lot of economic problems.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, if they're able to get some LBRY credits out of it, like a single LBRY credit is worth more than their currency.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly in terms of dollar value. And if their inflation is going up so fast, even today, if it's probably going to be considerably higher a month from now compared to what it is today, they might as well use LBRY credits because it's going to be much more stable. And if they want to convert it into dollars, then they've got dollars, which are much more safe than Bolivar. Even though the dollar has its own problems, it's
safer than the Bolivar. That I don't expect the US currency to go up 10,000 or to inflate 10,000% by tomorrow. That's not something I see happening. But the Bolivar
definitely not.
Could happen. Probably will.
It could very easily happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you have to feel bad for the people kind of caught in the middle of all that who are suffering so heavily because of something not their fault.
Yeah, that seems to be a common point you bring up in a lot of your videos, where you have a lot of this posturing from governments trying to be like, we're going to do this with the currency and this with the currency, and then the citizens are caught in the middle just trying to get by day.
Well, you'll like this point. So, in the fall of Rome, which the topic I love to bring up.
You really do like the fall of Rome.
I do. It's very interesting. It parallels today so heavily, but this point's a bit different. So a decree was passed that made it so that your son could not be in a different trade from you. Your son had to take on your family business because the inflation grew so bad to the point where people were leaving their trades. And let's say it was a blacksmith. If a blacksmith was earning a good living, but then suddenly the inflation went sky high, then they wouldn't be able to earn a good living anymore. And they would stop being a blacksmith. They'd find something else to do. So a decree was passed that made it so your son had to take on your role when you finished. You couldn't just leave your trade for another trade. So it's absolutely nuts. Can you imagine if you said your family, your mother's side, I believe, came from a farming background?
Yeah, both sides came from farming backgrounds, but I don't know where I brought up on my mother's side, but yeah.
I mean, imagine that, having to then take over that farm and then saying to your son whenever you have one, right, you now need to take over that farm. That's going to be your destiny.
Imagine imagine that with a modern approach with all the kids who now want to be YouTubers. I was a YouTuber, now you must be a YouTuber.
Yeah. Imagine that. It's just scary the lengths that governments will go to just to try and maintain their position.
There's definitely, obviously you can make the argument that that some governments may be trying to do it out of the, I guess, the goodness of their heart, but I think you're probably right that most people are just trying to maintain their power and try to do whatever they can to try to keep themselves in power.
Well, I think part of the problem is that a lot of government workers don't know more than your average other citizen. In fact, a lot of times they know even less because they haven't been exposed to the markets. And when you don't know anything about the markets, you don't know anything about money, you don't know anything about the currency, you're going to take what you think is the right approach that ends up being the complete opposite. And a lot of it, I believe, is probably accidental. But when people try to control markets, it's often people controlling markets that have no idea about markets.
Yeah. I don't know what to say to follow that.
I could be wrong, but at least that's what I think.
No, I think you're definitely right. There's, especially if it would be true. I imagine it would be true that a lot of these people who would know as much or even less than just your regular person about how a market would function. I can't imagine having these people being the ones who are in control of it would produce a positive result.
Exactly. I think that tends to be the socialist approach. They think they know how it works. It's a Dunning-Kruger effect. They have a very, very limited understanding, but they know a few terms. And then when they actually try and do something with that, they end up realizing, oh crap, we don't know anything about this. Better double down.
Well, I think that might be as good a place as any to end off the podcast, because I don't really have much else to say. I've kind of been trying to keep it going, but I'm getting too tired now. It's gonna get worse if I try to keep doing that.
No worries.
Hopefully next time I'm less tired. But I don't know. I can't imagine you'll be less tired though, because it's still probably going to be really early in the morning if we do that again.
Hopefully my shift changes. So we'll see.
Of course. If you go into your other shift, then maybe it'll be a bit easier, because then we could do it in my morning or something like that. Which would be your maybe midday or something.
We'll flip it around. Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, honestly, it's been fun, and I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no worries.
Particularly about for a month as a creator, so
it's only been that long. I thought it'd been a bit longer than that.
No, I looked before we started the podcast. I think it's 25 days since I created my AureusDenarius account.
Well, that's sort of what I want to do with this podcast. I don't want to just obviously I can. There's a lot of people who I don't want to bring on who are bigger creators, and I do have some connections with them, and I could get them on, but I still do want to bring on people who are really new to content creation, who are producing really awesome stuff like you are.
Thank you.
So
no, I think that's a good approach.
Yeah,
it gives people an opportunity. Yeah,
and obviously I also do like bringing on my friends as well, because that's always fun to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So something I've been doing towards the end of each of the episodes recently is Getting my guests to just give a shout out to some random other channel you've been enjoying lately.
Ooh, let me see. Let me see. I watch so many.
Mm-hmm.
Let me check. I've been enjoying Trav Crypto. He's a really nice guy. He's got nice short snippet videos that explain basic crypto concepts. He's good.
I'll bring him up on the screen.
Give him a shout out. He's also been very supportive of the channel. He's always commenting on my videos, and it's nice because it gives a bit of back and forth.
Yeah, I have noticed he has been commenting on pretty much everything you put out, it's awesome.
It's good. I like it. He's a nice guy.
What does he do? So, is Bitcoin anonymous? Money flowing into Bitcoin, remittances with crypto. Yeah, it seems like a pretty cool channel. I might have to check him out myself.
He's got this Trav Crypto. He's got I think it's the LBRY Daily Report, and then he's got, or is it LBRY Daily? I think it's LBRY Daily. And he's also got Trav Travels. So he's all about LBRY.
Cool. As for me, let's see what I'm gonna shout out today. What do we have on my subscription list? Yeah, here we go. Here's one. So this is actually he's only got a couple hundred subs on LBRY right now, but he has a couple thousand over on YouTube. He's a Linux creator who mainly focuses on audio work. So he'll do he's got videos where he does like beatboxing videos, but then he'll go over other videos or he'll do other stuff where he's like, oh, here's this open source software where I can I have an open source synthesizer, or here's a Linux distro I can use for audio production, things like that. So yeah, wow. This is a pretty fun channel. Yeah. I understand half the stuff he's talking about because audio stuff isn't really what I'm super knowledgeable about, but it's certainly an interesting channel.
What was the name of the channel again?
I posted it in chat. I posted a link to his thing. It's Unfa, for anyone who's listening to the show. So, UNFA.
I'll give him a follow too.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool dude. I should probably send him a message, see if he wants to come on the show. I've never spoken to him before, but I imagine he'd probably want to do it.
Well, I mean, we're all about building communities in LBRY, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I recognize the profile photo. I've seen him before. Yeah.
Okay, so... if you have nothing else you want to say, then I'll just shout out my patrons.
I just want to say thank you again. That's all. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Cool. So, so before I go, I want to thank my patrons. A special thank you to Joachim, Nathan, Andrew, Montazar, Peter D, Road, Tony Nolan, Larry, and Zilva. If you want to join the Patreon, there'll be a link to that down below, as well as my Amazon affiliate links where you can buy the gearies in this channel, or anything else you want, and I'll get a small kickback for it. Also, remember to go check out my main channel that's available on LBRY, BitTube, and LBRY, BitTube, BitChute, and YouTube. There we go. I've done this enough times, I should know already. And also, if you're listening to the audio version, the video version is available on LBRY and YouTube. If you're watching the video version, the audio version is available wherever you listen to audio podcasts. So, I think that's pretty much everything for this. I just forgot to ask you to mention what your platforms are.
Yes, I'm on LBRY, of course. I'm on YouTube. I'm on BitChute, Gab, Minds, and Twitter. Those are my main ones.
Is it just AureusDenarius on all of those?
Yes, it is, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, sorry, for Twitter, it's Aureus_Denarius. Someone already took it.
Yeah, I know how that feels. That's why my name's not Brody Robertson on Twitter. Yeah, so that's actually good, consistent branding. I should probably do better myself. So, I think that's pretty much everything for this episode. So, how do you want to sign out the podcast?
If you're not following Brody already, follow him. But you probably are.
Thank you. So that's pretty much everything for us. Aureus is welcome back on the show whenever he wants to come back on, especially if you guys want to see him back. If you want to come back, you're welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me. Absolutely, back at another time, yeah.
Awesome.
There we go. Stumbling over my words again,
Yeah, all good, man.
All right, go on.
I'm kind of going over stuff again as well. yeah, so that's pretty much everything for this. And yeah, I don't know how to. I still haven't worked out a way to sign off this podcast. So bye, I guess.
Bye.